if someone gives me a note, the first thing I look at is whether I think it's an accurate note. And sometimes it is, and sometimes it's completely off base. So first I have to examine the content, and then I have to gauge my reaction to it. And they do watch, and they do judge, and they're saying, "Oh, how is this going to play out?" Very often I will take someone aside and make what might be a public conversation a private conversation. That's one way.
I would say the important thing is to get my ego out of the way. It depends mostly on if they've done it in a public way. But the first thing is to breathe. The first thing is take a deep breath and take a moment and recenter myself, and then evaluate the note that I've been given. This is a very subjective and interpersonal business. There is not a single thing that's objective about it. And so choices get made. My choice may not be the same choice that, we'll just say, the writer, for example, might not be the same choice the writer would have made. So if they want to voice an objection, I have to assess it first. Are they right? Are they partly right? Are they even a little bit right? And if I can address that, then I will. If I think they're really wrong, then I will thank them for the suggestion and say, but we're moving on. That's my job.
And also, I always look at motivation. Is this objection or coming from an intellectual or emotional response? And if that emotional response is fear, then the first thing I have to address is, why are they afraid and how can I make them not afraid?
Good point. Really good. That goes to actors. When they are not giving performance as you need it, it's always out of fear. It's always out of insecurity. It's always out of feeling like they're not enough. And how can I help them feel better about themselves? How can I make them take a deep breath and give them a little something? I always talk about platforms to stand on. It's my analogy. How can I give them a platform to stand on so that they feel that there's solid ground underneath them? Because if they are objecting, and actors often can't necessarily articulate what their problem is, so I have to look for, what is the insecurity? What is the fear? They may not be able to, they might just say this line is stupid. Well, why is that line stupid to them? Ultimately, it's because they feel that they will not be believable by saying that line. So can I adjust the line, or can I adjust how they approach the line?
My brothers went to military high school, and then two of them went on to do further things in the military. But they always talked about respecting the people who were above them. And respect doesn't come because of your rank. Respect is earned even in the military. And you might have to do something that someone tells you, but you really do it, and you do it with passion because you respect them.
The other good thing about the military analogy is communication. Because I have a first assistant director who has a second assistant director who has a second, and there's this line of communication downward from me, if you want to put it that way, and upward to the ranks above me. And I can't do it all by myself. I can't communicate everything I need to communicate to all the people in all the places. But by telling the first AD, who has a communication system, my needs can be met.
And disseminated.
I think
efficiently.
Yes. So we both are okay with the military analogy. It's just that we can do it with love. We can do it. Being kind doesn't mean you're not decisive. Being kind doesn't mean you're not clear. I'm doing this with double negatives. Let me turn it around. You can be kind and clear. You can be kind and communicative. You can be kind and decisive. You don't have to rule by fear. And in fact, fear is the enemy. Fear is the enemy of creativity. So Let's make it about love. There's a certain gravitas to the position of being a director because you're a leader. So you have to have confidence in your ability to assess human beings, to understand psychological patterns, to understand why people do what they do and look to the underneath of that to be able to solve it. So I'm sure you can direct when you're 21, and I'm sure you have a point of view when you're 21. When you're older than that and you have more experience as a director, your life is different, so your direction is going to be different. They're both equally valid. It's just you have to accept the fact that it's your vision and your leadership that you are being hired for. Do you have the ability to do that?
And also, as a person who's often the boss in many parts of my life, I love being the worker bee sometimes. I love not being in charge because it gives me a completely different perspective. You know, if I'm volunteering for something at my kid's school, I'm on a team that's doing something, I love to watch that dynamic because it gives me perspective when I go back to being the boss.
Good point.
When I hear directing students being told, don't cut in your head, I go,
Who could say that?
who would say that? I've heard it said, and I go, no, absolutely cut in your head. And for me, coming from sitcoms, I was doing a live cut for the first 100 episodes I ever directed. So in terms of that, it was easy because I knew what cut from what to what to what.
You should say what a live cut is.
Oh, a live cut is when you are filming 4 cameras simultaneously and you are choosing what to show the audience of those 4 pieces or those 4 elements one at a time in sequence.
While you're shooting it, right?
While you're shooting it.
Hence the good snapping fingers thing.
Good snapping. Edit now. Now, that being said, it's great to also go to editing and see something that you've cut in your head interpreted in a brand new way, because for me, that's another day I learn. I go, oh, that's not what I intended, but it's so interesting that they put the shots together that way. And then our job, evaluate if it's better than what I imagined or just different, and which tells the story the best way.
That's always the guiding light. How to tell the story.
But also, there's some simple rules of editing that you can never get away from. Nearly always, you're changing the size and you're changing the angle. Or both.
To help tell the story.
To help tell the story with pictures. That's the way storyboards work. Now, that being said, because I just brought up storyboards, I rarely use them. I use them for a difficult sequence that might involve a stunt, but in terms of the way I block scenes and decide my camera shots, I work on paper looking at the script or looking at the scene from above in terms of who's moving where and where each camera is. So I can make a diagram of it but you could diagram it from a bird's eye view.
Mm-hmm. Did you see her go like this? This is how directors
we do
work.
that. Or sometimes like this, but not often. It's usually, I use this to explain.
You know, when I do this is when I'm telling a DP here, or the crew, here's the wedge we're going to see. This is what we need to light, this. We don't need to light this behind me. But when you're talking shot, it's that. Hell no. I do not choose lenses. I just say, or no to myself, this is a wide lens or this is a long lens. Those are kind of the 2 choices on the spectrum and everything in between. And when I'm communicating to the DP, this is like one of my big things. Tell what, but not how. Tell what I'm looking for, but don't tell them how to do it. The director of photography will know way more than I about that. The camera operator will know way more than I. However, I can judge and adjust if it's not what I want to see. They give me something, I say, no, I would like it to be a little longer lens, please. Or I say, no, instead of cutting them here, I want to cut them here. I know what I want to see, but allow everyone to contribute because they have the ability to contribute to make it happen per what's in my brain.
And I might say, once I've let them interpret what it should be and how it should be done, I will sometimes say, squeeze it a mil.
Yeah.
It's just you're
A mil,
using,
a mil's not much.
I know, a few mil.
Okay.
But, you're basically using their language sometimes just to tell them how big the adjustment should be or how small the adjustment should be.
Yeah. You do have to describe the shot when you're doing it, but in order to get the equipment that you want, you just ask for big to start out because you're going to get whittled down probably. And they're going to say, do you need a techno crane or can you do it with a basic crane? Because a techno crane costs more than a basic crane. If you need a techno crane because you need the telescoping arm, then you say you need that. My mentor, my original boss was Bruce Paltrow, and he had this list of things that were like rules for directors. And the very first one on there was ask for what you need. Because they can't read our minds. They don't know what creativity we're exercising here. If I say I'd like to have a crane here, basically they're going to say, how high do you want to go? Do you want to go 18 feet or 30 feet? And I need to say, maybe it is a smaller shot and I can do it with an 18-foot crane. And maybe it doesn't need to be a techno crane. Maybe it can be a basic crane. But ask for what I need.
And also, in terms of episodic television, they're done on what's called pattern budgets. They know how much they want to spend per episode. Or if they've read the script and know it's going to go beyond the normal pattern budget. Now, you're not asking for a crane on the day you're shooting. That's going to come very, very early in the production meeting, and it's going to be settled and very decisive by the time you tech scout.
And during prep, it's a lot of negotiation. Maybe I don't need a movement on that shot. Maybe we can do it from a hi-hat on a ladder. It's just high angle, but it doesn't move. So I'll trade you that crane that I asked for 20 more extras on this day because I really feel like the place is going to look, lost. Empty if I don't have 20 more extras. So it's like buying a car. I'll give you this, you give me this. Together we'll figure it out. Because you are expected to say right pretty much at the beginning of prep, what are the big things that are outside the pattern budget? And if you need them to tell your story in the best way possible, then stick to your guns. If you can figure out a way to help them pay for it, but still achieve what you need, great, go for that. But you have to stand up for those things that are really important to tell the story.
Okay, so for example, there might be a window that you want to shoot not from the set inside looking out, but you want to look outside looking in. And, we're not talking about a real window. It's a set that's built and it doesn't look like a house on the outside. Now, that being said, if you ask for that and you know it's going to cost money, but they know 3 episodes ahead, they might use that again. Then in that pattern budget, they're going to amortize it over the 2 episodes, and then it becomes workable. Mm-hmm. Or, again, to go back to what Bethany said, every time I ask for something that I know costs money, I make sure they're going to use it. And I've shot it so that they use it, mm-hmm. because nobody likes to throw money down the drain.
Right. I, the director, am going to be judged subjectively by the showrunner, by the studio, by the network on the first day of dailies, the film that I shot yesterday. And so the material that we choose for the first day has to have some power in it, either some emotional power, some physical power, something exciting, something that draws people in. Because if it's just then that's going to be the judgment of me. However, on the first day, I can't do stuff that I will do better when I know the crew better, when I know the cast better, because then I'm only handicapping myself. So it's a really tricky thing to figure out what to shoot on the first day.
And then throw into that there are certain expectations in terms of the the star might only work 4 days a week.
Right.
So in terms of doing the board, the AD, selecting what we're shooting every day or suggesting what we're going to shoot every day, there's a lot of
Movable pieces.
yeah, and they have to all work together, and then you have to say, and I want on my first day to do this.
Or I don't want to do that on my first day. More likely, probably.
Yeah.